Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is Rihanna from the S.E.L.F Project. I hope you're well. I'm so excited to have you here. So, again, I am Rihanna. I'm the founder of the plan and also the curator of the S.E.L.F Project. So, thank you for joining us for the April show, where we will be discussing the power of self destruction. So, the main aim of this show is to look at all different aspects of self, and these live podcasts aim to unpack the meaning of these variety of self words that we've looked at. So, first month, we looked at the power of self development, and that looked at mentoring as a tool for self development. And then the second show, we looked at the power of self awareness and how self awareness can support all different aspects of self, to be fair. So, the point of it is looking at how we can embody, deny, or improve these aspects of self and share stories, tips, and resources for support on how we can see every life fulfilled. That's the full version of the self acronym. So these shows are held on each Sunday of the month, the fourth Sunday of the month, sorry, and we'll explore a self word to discuss in these soul changing sessions. And hopefully, you will get something from our guests and audiences, you know, to be able to develop these different aspects of yourself. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you've got your self suggestions as well. And this month, like I said, we'll be looking at the power of self destruction because this was the most voted for word across all of our social media platforms. So bear with us as we delve into this discussion with our guests. So I'll see you shortly. Welcome back. Okay, so those of you that may have missed my intro, which was absolutely phenomenal, by the way, welcome to the S.E.L.F Project today. I am your host, Rihanna Ebanks Bab, and today we will be discussing the power of self destruction. So, without further ado, I'm going to start introducing our guests. Now, we have psychologists, we have a motivational speaker, and we have an amazing, phenomenal teacher. So, I am so pleased to, first of all, introduce Zara Muirhead, and she is the founding director of Love Literacy. Welcome to the stage, Zara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So please, I know I gave a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, but please tell our audience who you are, what you do, and what brought you here to the S.E.L.F Project.
Well, I am Zara, as Rihanna said, and I'm an educator. So I've been teaching for over 15 years, and then I founded my company, Love Literacy, over 10 years ago. And I'm really passionate about education. I'm
Mm,
passionate about young people and adults, and them really exceeding even their own expectations of what they can achieve.
mm,
Um, Recently, I founded a CIC called Love Education, and that's because actually some young people don't have access to tuition. They can't afford extra support. And so we
mm.
want to make sure that disadvantaged and minority ethnic groups can exceed, excel, achieve.
Amazing. Yes, thank you so much for that intro. And I'm looking forward to your perspective on the power of self destruction because I'm sure in your profession you've seen a lot of people potentially, go down that road of self destruction and self sabotage. But, what success looks like to these individuals as well. So thank you very much for being here, Zara. Next, we have Josephine, and Josephine is known as the encourager. As you will know, if you follow her, she is all about that encouragement. She is also a clinical psychologist. So, welcome to the stage, Josephine.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So, also
Thank
please introduce yourself to our viewers, Josephine. Tell us what you do
you.
and what brought you here.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Josephine I'm a clinical psychologist. I like to refer to myself as the encourager. So I primarily work with young people, so which includes teenagers, young adults, and young couples. So between the age years of marriage, between like 0 to 5 years. So what do I do with them? I make them understand themselves better and to just basically discover themselves. So what brought me here is I have seen self destruction in and out. I have experienced it and I also see it in my practice. So it's very important that we know what it is and we know how to work around it, particularly because it's a response to stress. And April is Stress Awareness Month, and it's
Mm,
an amazing topic. So I love being here. Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I completely agree. Thank you so much, Josephine. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your perspective as well as a psychologist. I myself, I study psychology. So, yeah, looking into the different aspects of why people go down the road of self-destruction and how they can pull themselves back out. So thank you very much for being here. And last but not least, we have Cheryl is a multidisciplinary and multimodal coach, consultant, and speaker. We are so thankful to have her here today. Welcome to the stage, Cheryl. Unmute yourself, please. Yes, wonderful.
Good morning. It's very early in the morning here in Barbados.
Yes,
I
I
think
can
my brain
imagine.
fog is still sorting itself out. So,
Yes.
thank you so much for having me, Rihanna. It's a real pleasure to be here to meet Zara and Josephine. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And please also tell our guests who you are, what you do, and what brought you here today.
Yes, like you said, I am a multimodal and multidisciplinary coach and facilitator. And by that, I mean that I get to approach change and human behavior in in different ways. About 23 years ago, I started my business, Connect with Your Passion. And that
Mm,
was after a 9-month journey of birthing my own, reconnecting to what I understood to be my passion and service in the world. And forgive me. And as a result of that, well, the purpose of that really was to catch women at 45 and 35 and 50 who had gotten to a stage in their lives where they realized that they'd put their ladder up on the wrong wall, and they wanted to kind of retrace their lives so that they finish empty, meaning that they didn't want to leave this earth without living true to their passions. And so my work in that area has really helped a lot of women, especially, and men too, to really reconnect with who they are and to celebrate their authenticity. So that's what I
mm,
help women and girls do today.
amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective on, you know, how people go through this self-destructive cycle, this self-destructive behavior. So thank you very much for being here. Okay, so I think what I always do with all my guests when they're on the self project, I try and give a bit of a definition, right? Because I think it's so important for us to define exactly what it is that we're working on. So I came across this definition and I shared it in preparation for this show. Hopefully, you can all see this on the screen. So what I came across is this: by choosing therapy, it says, what is self destructive behavior? Self destructive behavior is when you do something that can cause yourself emotional or physical harm. These behaviors can come in many forms, such as binge drinking, becoming overly self critical, and self harm. There are many different types of self destructive tendencies, and they can be repeating patterns of behavior or manifest independently. Sometimes there are conscious risk evaluations made before engaging in these behaviors. However, the risk or consequences are often unknown or unanticipated by the individual. So, based on that, tell me a bit about whether you agree. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with some parts of it? What's your thoughts overall? And I will ask Josephine first of all.
Yes, 100%. I was just nodding my head when I saw the definition. It has the ability, so it's any behavior that affects, emotionally, psychologically, or physically rather. So it talks about binge drinking, of course, that affects, the body, and it can also affect the mind. And self criticisms, we underplay that a lot. So whether as
Mm,
coaches or as members of the audience, when we speak back to ourselves, we have we talk down on ourselves. That is self destruction. So definitely,
mm,
I agree with the definition. And yeah,
yeah. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you very much. Anyone else? What's your thoughts on the definition that I came across?
I think the definition is pretty apt. The angle that I like to take it from is the repeated behaviors and thoughts and loop of feelings and thoughts that we harp on over and over, that
Mm,
become habits over time that are in fact derailing our lives. And
mm,
in my line of business, and we use the word self sabotage a lot.
yeah.
And so things like worry, constant looking over the shoulder and
Mm,
wondering what people think of you,
mm,
failure to launch because of what people think, is really harmful. Um,
mm,
we have a brain that is intended to be protective because we are, I think, or in as much as I do a lot of work on what is your purpose and passion in life, our sole purpose in life is really to be, is really to survive. So we have a
mm,
very critical brain that helps protect us. But then over, if we continue to, just focus on our limiting thoughts and limiting belief systems, then we really
mm.
harm ourselves. And I see this in my work where people just don't move forward, and they,
Yes.
um, I call it self-destruction, and I don't, and sometimes I think about that word as too large for the experiences that my clients are sharing, but
Mm,
at the same time it is true. So I would land on a lot of worry and negative self-talk and critical thinking.
yeah.
Because half of the
Thank you.
times you wouldn't tell your girlfriend some of the things that you tell yourself first thing in
Yes.
the morning when you look in the mirror. And I think that is self-destructive. It's then how you're setting yourself up to go into the world.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That links into a conversation I was having on Friday. Actually, I was in a Twitter space and was talking about self-esteem issues. Self-critical talk was one of the big major things that I was speaking about. So I can completely understand with that. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And Zara, what's your thoughts on the definition?
Yeah, I concur. What jumped out at me from the definition was behaviours. And I
Mm,
thought we've got to take it back because
mm,
before the behaviour is always the thinking, isn't it? It
mm,
always starts in the mind. And I
mm,
think sometimes we look at the behaviours and we focus on trying to fix that,
mm-hmm,
whether it's, staying in bed all day or drinking too much or whatever the action is, but it all
mm,
starts in the mind. It all starts with that. They call it the thought feeling connection, isn't it?
y-
The thoughts affect how you feel and then what you do. So it's
yeah.
really the self destruction. It originates in the mind, as everybody said.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And I think that leads us nicely into our first set of questions. Because, a lot of the time it can be very difficult to know when you're actually engaging in self destructive behaviors, how to recognize them. So, my first question to you all is, what are some of the common signs of self destructive behavior, and how can you recognize them first within yourself, but also within others? And I will first of all share this question with Cheryl.
Ah, okay, I'm going to start with how I recognize them in myself. Anytime that I say the word I can't,
Mm,
or anytime I am having a thought of lack, those
mm,
are two strong ones. I live in a country that is so blessed, as a Caribbean country, as an island. There's sun, there's the lovely people. We are host to international tourists from all over the world, and
mm,
so we've got a lot of loving experiences that we share with each other.
mm,
And so we also have the desire to help and support in a neighborly fashion in terms of how we treat to our neighbors. And I
mm,
start there because oftentimes you get an experience that, um, you get to be in an experience where you receive so much and you're
mhm,
able to give so much, and the feeling of giving is so rewarding that there's so much for us to be grateful for. So for me, when I forget to be in gratitude, when I
mm,
think about what is not there, what is missing, I
mm,
think those are some of the forgive me, the common things that I experience, the common behaviors and expressions that limit me
mm,
from really moving through the world as, boldly and gracefully as I
Mm,
could.
mm. And that's where these phrases that many of us hear within the coaching world, self-limiting beliefs,
Hmm.
and I find that it's not always explained as best as it could be. So the way that you've explained it just now is really powerful because I can actually really connect with that. Whereas many times it's just, yeah, self-limiting beliefs, but what does it actually mean? What does it look like? So thank you very much for that, Cheryl. Zara, what's your thoughts on the question? If you need me to repeat it, feel free to ask me to.
I think in my life, signs of self sabotage would be knowing better and not doing better.
Yes.
So having the tools, knowing that, or seeing the signs, but not pivoting. So I
Mm,
found in my own life for a number of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, I was always ill around the Christmas period. So that
mm-hmm,
first
mm-hmm,
term, for anybody that's an educator out there, that first term is the hardest because it's the longest and it's winter in England if you're in a cold climate. And I would always be ill until one day
mm,
a mentor said, well, what are you going to do to change that outcome? And it was when I
mm,
became hospitalized one Christmas or I think it was New Year's Eve, that I thought, I don't want to experience this anymore. But it
mm,
was
mm,
the reality that actually I was sabotaging myself because I
mm,
knew better but didn't do better.
mm. I like that. Well, not like that, but you know what I mean. I like the definition that you've given. Because yeah, it is a lot of the time knowing better. But do you know what? Something that I've noticed is that not everyone is aware that they do it. Because even in the definition, it did mention about you know, aw- being aware, but also not being aware of the
Yeah,
tendencies that you
yeah.
lean into. And I find that's where probably the most self-destructive behaviors lie, is in your unconsciousness about what you're doing. But I know that there was a post that I shared again in preparation for this, and it was talking about, literally, let me actually bring it up for you all to to see, because it's so true. A lot of the time we can intentionally but unintentionally spice up our week a little bit with poor life choices and a dash of self-destruction. But yeah, we're doing it unintentionally. And even with this one here, ruins my life again, but why am I so shocked that my life is ruined, but I did it to myself. And then last but not least, this one, when you're fully aware, kind of what you said, Sarah, fully aware of the unnecessary self-destructive, I won't say that word, um, but you can't bring yourself to do anything to stop it. And I think that's definitely the one that I would like some insight from you, Josephine, because I think many of us don't know why we do it, but we continue doing it. It's habitual, it becomes addictive somewhat. And could you share a bit about that from a clinical psychologist perspective? Why are we so addicted to these self-destructive behaviors?
Okay, so I was just smiling when Zara was speaking because that was me 3, 4, 5, even up to last year, right? So why do we keep on engaging this behavior? Sometimes we don't know.
Mm,
Sometimes we feel, oh, I just want to work, I just want to give my best. So we're all in the coaching space, we're all in the mental health space. So we want to see our clients improve,
mm,
but at the expense of our own lives, at the
yes.
expense of our own health. So when we will not even be aware that we're self-destructive. So right,
Mm,
so that's when we're not aware because maybe it's our job, we just want to improve. Like I was always working overtime. I wanted to see the best in my clients. So and I
mm,
also work in the addiction space. I know how addiction is.
right.
So it was very overwhelming. I was always, falling ill and everything. So sometimes when we're not aware of what we're doing. So that could be a problem. You're engaging in negative self talk, telling yourself you're not good enough, so you have to overstudy, you have to overwork. So that's one. Two, if you're a people pleaser,
Mm,
that could be very, very destructive. If you're a people pleaser, you just want people to see the good in you. You're just looking for external validation, and that's a
mm-hmm,
problem. And then people pleasing is very linked to childhood trauma. So, for example, if maybe you grew up in a dysfunctional family, you never received self praise, you never received praise or admiration. So, people pleasing could be linked to that because you trying to get external validation to
Mm.
take care of the little child when you were younger. So
Yeah.
people pleasing could be another factor for self-destructive behavior. Another
Mm.
one of my head is not knowing how to respond to stress. Okay,
Mm.
so why do some teenagers, I work with teenagers, why do some teenagers self-harm? Why do they cut themselves? Why
Mm.
do they, binge drink? Why do they have multiple sexual partners? They are stressed, but they don't
Mm.
know how to respond to stress in a healthy way. Okay,
Mm.
so I think those are the three things that I could say. So not knowing that we are self-destructive, not knowing that and also people pleasing and not knowing how to respond to stress. Yeah, so self-harming, even not eating, right?
Yeah.
Not eating or overeating is also a self-harm. Oh, I'm just really tired, let me just take some chocolates. That's
Yeah.
self-harm.
Yeah.
That's self-destructive behavior. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually watching a video the other day, and there was a guy talking about lying as a self-destructive behavior. And I was like, how? But then when he started explaining it, I was like, oh my gosh, the penny just dropped for me. So he was basically saying that engaging in a lie is removing your accountability to the truth. And then
Mhm.
once you
That's right.
become addicted to lying, you have no recollection of what the truth actually looks like. You don't have to be accountable to the truth within that because you've removed your responsibility from it. And I was like, oh my God, like the light bulb just went off. And I was also looking at another video where a lady was talking about the neurological aspect of self-destruction, where we become addicted to the happy chemicals that are released through the process of emotional numbing when we are engaging in self-destructive behaviors. And again, I was like, ding 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 ding, all these light bulbs are going off. Like, yeah, I can see how it can become so difficult for people to pull themselves out of these cyclical behaviors. So my next question to you all is, how do you typically cope with stress or negative emotions, and have you engaged in self-destructive behaviors as a way of coping? So first of all, I'll ask you, Josephine.
For me, what I always tell myself and also tell my clients is coping with stress. You need to know where the stress is coming from. You need to know where your battle is. So that's the first
Mm.
thing I always say. Where is the stress coming from? Identify it. Is it from work? Is it from school? Or from everything? Or from family? So coping with stress, I would say you need to identify where the stressor is from. Okay, then you need to ask yourself, so is it this good stress or bad stress? In psychology, we believe that there's good stress and bad stress. For example,
Yeah.
exercise, right? So
Yeah.
I need to be fit, I need to be on a diet, I need to exercise. So that's good stress. Okay, so if
Mm.
it's good stress, you know how to modify it. But for the purpose of this discussion, definitely we know coping, a bad coping mechanism that is self-destruction is the bad type of stress, the distress. So if I'm overworked, I could engage in binge drinking. Okay, so I
Mm.
need to know, okay, so this is bad stress. So what can I do about it?
Mm.
So three, do I need to self-care? Do I need to improve my self-care? So in
Mm.
terms of physical self-care, do I need to improve my diet? Do I need to start exercising? So that's how I cope with stress using self-care. Another way of coping with stress is setting boundaries and
Mm.
not being afraid to do that. Setting boundaries and not feeling guilty for doing that. So are you setting boundaries at work? Are you
Mm.
setting boundaries even with your clients? Your client shouldn't be, there are certain times your client should call you, there are certain times they shouldn't call you.
Yeah.
Being able to rest and not feeling bad about it. So yesterday I had to tell myself, no clients, no sessions, nothing. I went out with my sisters and I had a nice time because I had been
Mm.
stressed. So setting boundaries and not feeling, guilty about it. So I'll
Yeah.
just let the others add to that.
Yeah, that boundaries one is a tough one though. As much as we must do it, we have to stick to ourselves, because whilst we set boundaries for others, if we overstep our boundaries, that in itself can be considered a self-destructive behavior, because
Yeah.
you're leaving yourself open to vulnerability from others. So I can completely agree with you on that one. Um, Cheryl, feel free to jump in on this one, please, lovely.
Yes, just remind me of the question again.
Yes. So the question is, how do you typically cope with stress and negative emotions? And have you ever engaged in self-destructive behaviors as a way of coping?
Hmm. So I was going to start with how I typically do with it. When I first started coaching, when I first started my foray into personal development, it
Mm-hmm.
was through Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I say that because Stephen Covey focuses on principles to live by.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins goes at everything hard.
Yeah.
And I start there because Tony Robbins would use a little mechanism from neurolinguistic programming called anchoring.
Yeah.
And I had developed an anchor where whenever I touch right here, I would see the ocean in St. Lucie at one of our beautiful spaces called River Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see the ocean, blues and whites, just flowing through my body,
Mm.
calming me. And I used to use that. And I used that for a good few years until I realized that I was actually being harsh with myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I have a self destructive episode,
Mm-hmm.
which means that I'm thinking negatively or I'm overeating or I'm moving away from my diet or I'm procrastinating, etc., I would touch my wrist and I would just go into this new state
Mm.
of productivity and positivity. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge, though, is that I was not allowing myself to feel. And
Mm.
therefore, if I'm not allowing myself to feel, I'm not giving myself an opportunity to learn from it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not about wallowing, but my
Mm-hmm.
mom used to say to me, lady of extremes.
Mm.
So I went from doing the anchor to feeling too much.
Mm.
And so started to linger there, which was also self destructive.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that we if we move from one end of the pendulum to the other, the extremes also are where places where we can harm ourselves.
Mm.
So I had to learn how to balance.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so balancing is my word. How to balance feeling and moving into action in a timely fashion that you remain productive or remain in service. Because by being too harsh with myself, I was impatient with my clients because I was
Mm.
thinking, come on, get it.
Yeah.
When I started to feel, I was able to come into the space more empathically.
Yes.
And so that is so the way that and one of the things that I also believe is that I want to be able to experience certain things. Not that I will ever have every single experience that my clients have,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be able to experience certain processes so that when I ask something of my clients, I really could understand their struggle in
Yes.
delivering that. And so for me, using these tools that I use to help me to also help my clients.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is amazing. And as you were talking, it's bringing me back to a recent course that I finished, trauma informed practitioner. And what they speak about is moving from a place of disconnection to reconnection. And that's where I kind of can make my understandings with what you said. So thank you very much for that offering, Cheryl. Thank you. Zara, what about yourself?
I mean, so much of what you ladies are saying is resonating. I wrote down balance from Cheryl, and I wrote
Hmm.
down boundaries from Josephine.
Mm,
How I coped with negative emotions. So, at one stage of my life in my childhood, it was you're to be seen and not heard. And if you're
yeah.
from a certain cultural background, you know that phrase. And
Yeah.
so you don't express how you feel. And then it got to a point in my adolescence where I was very outspoken,
Mm,
very forward, and it wasn't always received very well. So then I
mm,
went back to let's be seen and not heard. And so in my
mm,
adult life, in my professional life as a teacher in education, if there were things that I wasn't happy with, I and we know
mm,
what happens. It builds
mhm,
and it builds, and the pressure cooker,
mm,
and
mm,
there was the explosion, and it was very unsettling for me, and it really threw me off balance. And then I had to almost learn to speak again,
mm,
learn to express, and learn, as you said, Josephine, to set up, create boundaries, and to say, actually, this makes me uncomfortable. This is
mm,
acceptable to me. this, and really create those boundaries within my life. So repression was how I coped. It didn't
Mm.
work, evidently.
Mhm.
And so really learning to speak, firstly to myself, be honest with myself about how I'm feeling and what's happening for me, and then being bold enough to say that to the relevant persons. That
Yeah.
this is the line,
Mm.
this is the time frame, this is a
Mm.
yes, this is a no, and just being really clear on that.
Yeah. I like that. And something that I picked up there is courage, the courage to make that choice. And a lot of us don't have that, in all honesty. So that leads me nicely into the next question, because whilst you just gave a bit of an explanation of how your choices led you to those behaviors, I would like to hear a little bit more. Let's delve into that a little bit deeper, unpack it a bit, and tell me a bit about the choices that led you down that path. So, whilst you're off mute and as you just finished speaking, Zara, I'm going to throw it back out to you. So, tell me a bit about some of the choices that led you to those destructive behaviors, that led you to not having those boundaries in place in the first place, but also what changed? What made you think, no, actually, something needs to change? What was that epiphany moment that you had that was like, yeah, let's do this for real?
So, full disclaimer, I was raised by a wonderful, powerful, strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
She's a solo parent of 3 children. I'm the eldest. And because of her strength and because of how she overcame my mother overcame her own adversities, her voice and her presence in my life was very strong.
Mm,
And what I began to realize is that actually my mother's voice within me was
mm,
louder and more profound than my voice.
mhm,
And as a 30-something-year-old woman with a husband and 2 children and a business and my own life,
mm,
what I realized is that it was too entwined. I need
mm,
to distinguish very clearly my own voice.
mm.
And therapy,
Yes.
Rihanna, therapy, and it took a while. It took a process of therapist number 3
Mhm.
to really help me to find my voice. And every week she would say, "And who is Zara?" It's the
Yeah.
most frustrating question I've ever been asked in my life. What
Yeah.
do you mean, who is Zara? And it was every week she'd say, "You're working so hard," and
Mm,
I was working hard to kind of unravel the cords of
mm,
mum me, and find me.
mm,
And in finding me and finding my voice and my opinions and my beliefs, separate to my upbringing, separate to my mother, it really, really was pivotal for me in my life.
Thank you for sharing such an intimate part of yourself. And yeah, I really do appreciate that, because yeah, our parents can play such a huge influential role in our lives. And um as a person that works in an advocacy organization, the power of advocacy is so important, self advocacy at that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you very much, Zara. um Josephine, I'll throw this question back out to you as well. What led you to those self-destructive behaviors, but what was the pinnacle moment that made you choose to change? I'll
Okay.
throw that one. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, what led me, the one I remember was in secondary school, my final year, of course, exams, wanting to be the top of my class. So what led me to this self-destructive behavior then was I stopped eating.
Mm,
So the choices that was basically, I had the perfectionist mindset. Oh,
mm-hmm,
if it wasn't this, it had to be 100%.
mm,
It had to be 100. So that was the major choice for me. Had to be 100%. So I felt if it wasn't 100%, I couldn't eat. If it wasn't 100%, I couldn't sleep. If it wasn't 100%,
mm,
I couldn't have fun. Okay, so that
yeah,
was a horrible choice I made, and of course, I felt I was always ill. I was always sickly. People would
mm,
call my mom and ask what's wrong with me. My mom would call, what's happening? I didn't even know. I just knew. But now I'm looking back, I had a perfectionist mindset, which is a horrible mindset.
yeah,
Unfortunately, we cannot be perfectionists. So the peak moment for me was I think was it last year, 2021. So that perfectionist mindset followed me through school, graduate school,
Mm.
work, and all of that. So just like Zara, every month I'm in the hospital. I'm taking injections. My bum is sore from taking injections. I'm
Mm.
AA, everything is fine. So the doctor will be asking me, what exactly is wrong? And I didn't know. So until I made up my mind, I'm like, so it's time you start practicing what you're telling your clients, right?
Yeah.
So it's time you start taking care of yourself. And that was the moment for me. So I stopped taking calls after 5 p.m. I stopped responding to
Mm.
emails on weekends when I wasn't working. And then I
Mm.
saw the change. I started glowing. I started adding weight in the right.
Mm.
Yeah, I started adding weight, but not in a
In the
bad
right
way.
places.
Yeah. So, but I started being happy and not being drained all of the time. And even if I sleep, I'm not waking up tired. I was
Hmm.
better. I was more effective, in
Mm.
delivering to my clients. So yeah, that was the moment for me when I said, I need to stop spending money on medications and more on myself.
Hmm.
I started wearing better clothes because I started even doing my nails and all of those things, and I didn't
Yeah.
even know those things were important. So yeah, so those were the moments for me.
Gosh, I can relate to literally everything you just said. Because honestly, there's been moments in my life where, yeah, the perfectionist mindset just takes over. It literally takes over. And do you know
Very
what?
much so.
Someone calls me a high achiever. And whilst it can sound really great, it can be at the detriment of you because you have to, look, well, you unintendedly live up to those
Unconsciously.
expectations of being a high achiever. And it's like everything I do now, I have to achieve to the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
There's no less,
Mm-hmm.
there's no in between. And failure is not an option. But yeah, it had to be a thing of, well, there has to be a middle. There has to be a middle ground of, okay, if this doesn't work, what next? Is this a reflection of me as a person or just
Yeah.
a moment in time, so
Yeah.
I
And
can
letting it being
definitely.
okay. I had to tell myself it's okay to fail. I
Yes.
started embracing failure. I started
Yes.
embracing setbacks. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the what we think about failure as well, because we can often think failure is the be all and end all, but failure is where you learn the most, where you grow the most. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Cheryl, over to you on this question.
Oh my goodness. I am now going to enter into a therapeutic space. Oh, boy, there's like so much there when I listen to you guys. For me, it was goodism, trying to
mm,
be perfect, even trying to be the good little girl.
mm,
Oh my gosh, trying to be perfect, trying to be the girl that daddy respects when she shares her opinion. I had a very,
I
very
can feel that.
strong father figure who was very good at debating and so good at debating that let me be kind, but he's so good at debating that I used to feel that I don't have the ability to hold my own. And I
Mm,
started to shut myself down. I
mm,
lost my voice physically. I lost my voice for 5 months
wow.
when I was in the midst of my divorce. And I knew that linked back to the experiences of my dad always being right.
Mm, mm,
And my husband being a very super intelligent individual who I felt I couldn't hold my own with. I remember years before that because I was an academic for close to 20 years. And
mhm.
one of my colleagues, we were having lunch one day, and he said something to me. And however I responded, he said, "You are easily phased." Oh my gosh, that thing floored me. I wasn't
Mm,
that really phased because I felt like I kept comparing myself to the brightest people
mm,
around me. And like you mentioned about being a high achiever, that was a label that I had to fight. When I
mhm,
graduated from university, I was in the high achiever realm.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
remember feeling embarrassed about the results that I got because I felt now I'm going to have to live up to these results. People are going to
mhm,
think I'm so smart and I'm having this imposter syndrome like, how smart am I? God did all
mhm,
this work. This wasn't me.
mm,
Girl. So it was quite a traumatic experience for me
mm,
because the actual experience of losing my physical voice told me that I was shutting myself down. To
Mm.
speak of pain, both Josephine and Zara spoke of pain. When I started Connect with Your Passion, I started Connect with Your Passion after a visit to the doctor one day, and this was after I graduated from university up here. And
Mm-hmm.
when I graduated from university, I woke up one day at work, and I say woke up because I had woken up from a blackout.
Oh, wow.
And I just got up and I noticed that something was terribly wrong because I had a piercing needle point headache. And I walked over to the doctor. She didn't tell me that I'm going to get you a PET scan. She didn't tell me that she'll get me any medication. She said to me, Cheryl, I want you to go to the beach, find a big rock, and contemplate your life. Look at the bad, the good, the ugly, the indifferent, and
Mm.
face it.
Mm.
I did that for 9 months. I wouldn't have breakfast, lunch, or dinner without going to the beach first. So 3 times a day, I was at the beach,
Mm-hmm.
contemplating my life. And I then ended up leaving my job because I was actually going to work in severe pain. I would be crying and
Mm.
didn't even know that I was crying until the water dropped on my pages at work. I was in so much pain. And
Mm.
when I left my job, I was so free that have never worked a day since I left my job. I've never felt pain when I was
Mm.
doing a speaking engagement, doing a training engagement. Never, ever in over 23 years, ever.
Amazing.
So the piece for me, the inflection point for me was recognizing that through my doctor's advice and her prescription,
Mm-hmm.
that you are worthy of sharing your voice and not trying to live up to people's expectations anymore. That you are
Mm.
not shining in this world. And it wasn't a straight line
Mm-hmm.
because as I started, I then started to worry about what people really think about who are you to think you could walk into this space and talk about people helping to connect them with their passion. That's so irresponsible because people are going to lose their jobs and it's
Yeah.
going to be your fault. They're trying to find their passion and then they're not going to be able to make any money because they're looking for their passion. And
Mm.
so it didn't end, but I had the tools now to look within and say, hey, God gave
Mm.
you this. And if God gave you this, who am I to decide that God is wrong? So
Mm.
faith was a big thing for me in terms of continuing on my journey and allowing myself the freedom to speak.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I don't even know what more to say, but wow. Um, gosh, just yeah, so much there. So much there that I personally can resonate with. Um, yeah, just yeah, thank you for sharing. And that brings me nicely into my next question because I think some of what you spoke about there, Cheryl, is quite cultural. And I see the eyes rolling from both you and Josephine. But yeah, I think a lot of it is cultural in regards to how we limit ourselves and how we fall into these self-destructive behaviors because we have a connection to uphold our culture in many ways. And being someone that lives in the UK, um, like Zara, we can often find it difficult to connect our cultural roots. And that in itself can lead to self-destructive behaviors. So my next question, I'm going to throw this one out first to you, Zara. How do you think societal and cultural factors contribute to the self-destructive behaviors that we may engage in? And what have you done to address these factors?
Yes, imposter syndrome is
Mm-hmm.
one massive one. I was explaining to my administrator, we have this CIC and it's for minority, ethnic, and disadvantaged groups. And she said, "Oh, I don't." She's based in Ghana. She lives in Ghana, and so she said,
Mm-hmm.
"You know," she was kind of questioning, "Why do we need this? You know, why do we need
Mm-hmm.
these weekly activities for black and black children predominantly?" And so when I began to explain to her what it's like to be the 4% in Britain,
Mm-hmm.
what it's like to operate in all white spaces, what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to be in leadership and some of the microaggressions and the challenges that we face,
Yes.
she kind of laughed nervously. And I think it was just because it was so mind blowing to her that she she couldn't but laugh
Yeah.
at what I was explaining to her when I said there was a young lady who is now a student of ours who was assaulted by adults while her teachers stood there and watched. In Britain, this is what we face. For me personally, operating as a Black woman in leadership in schools was really challenging. And I mean, you have to really make some difficult decisions and then live by those decisions. I look back and I now think, it's because I was the Black female. That's why I was sent on that mission. When I would present an issue, you know, this young person has done this. They would ask me which one. So is it the Black one or is it the white one? Okay, so the more severe punishment would go to the Black one, and I had to challenge that or obey. Or so we have to recognize the kind of trauma that we experience within workplaces and within settings, and how that impacts us. And it impacts us in ways that other people just wouldn't understand. And that's what I realized, that it's outside of their experience, it's outside of their remit. And so you know it and you understand it, but it's something you have to work through and learn how to navigate. The second thing for me was social media. The influx of images that we're presented. And for me, it was about really thinking about that as a diet. So just because a food is not harmful, it's not a drug, it doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy for you. And so kind of unfollowing pages and people on social media that weren't nutritious, it wasn't valuable to me. That was really important for me in kind of managing potential self-destruction and potential negative patterns, kind of thinking about my diet and recognizing that the experiences I have in the workplace and in the workforce, they're not made up, they're not fictional, they're not a figment of my imagination, they're very real. It's just that some people won't understand it.
Yeah. Geez, again, I can relate to so much of what you said, because, you know, I myself, I would consider myself in a position of leadership, and it can definitely be difficult to navigate. And I will say navigate because, again, being able to, I guess, live up to a quote unquote professional expectation. And this is the purpose of this show, is because breaking down that stigma of what a professional looks like is so important to me. What a professional does, what a professional is, it's so important to me. And that's why I created these shows, because we are all professionals in our lives, and we use a variety of different tools and techniques to heal these different aspects of ourselves. And, you know, I found myself previously falling into burnout, and I've had this before, where trying to live up to an expectation in a space that culturally conflicts is something that I've definitely had to navigate through, but also express, because you're not alone. That's the thing that I realized, is that you're actually not alone, and many people don't speak about it. And the other thing is, us all here, we're all Black women. The notion of a strong Black woman has also been a thing that, whilst, again, being in a predominantly white country, what that looks like and feels like, how that manifests in your behaviors, can be self-destructive, because you always have an armor of resilience on, but at what point do you get to take that off and just be a human being? My saying is, I'm a human being, not a human doing, a human thinking, or a human saying. That's my saying. So at what point do you take off that armor and just be a human being? So thank you very much for that offering, Zara. Cheryl, I'll move over to you, and then Josephine, before we head over to our break.
I am the descendant of slaves. And you know the history of the Caribbean. And so whilst Black people are a majority, we carry unsolved wounds, that are yet to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And they show up in workspaces, especially where there's a deference to the descendants of the masters.
Mm.
And it shows up in workspaces where, or Black leaders still present themselves as overseers,
Mm-hmm.
where being able to hold the key to the office is a symbol of pride and prestige.
Mm.
And so, as a result of that, what we carry forward, and one of the issues that I face, especially as when I'm in the role of as a consultant,
Mm-hmm.
is our need as Caribbean people to reach outside of the region for better.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you know, the saying, the prophet is without honor in her homeland.
Mm.
We look outside of ourselves to go back to the international realm to select these advanced techniques and approaches to how
Mm-hmm.
we can heal our own organizations when we try to, you know, present solutions to our
Mm-hmm.
problems. So culturally, we are, of course, are doing this to ourselves because there is an inherent lack of awareness
Mm-hmm.
of how destructive that is. So we now have a collective destruction of which we are
Yes.
part because we're refusing to speak out individually.
Mm.
So a simple thing like me delivering a speech years ago and putting my hand akimbo, which is a very African thing to do, but it is a part of my genetic memory that I would do that as
Mm-hmm.
part as me expressing myself. And so an overseer, or meaning a person with the genetic code of overseeing,
Mm-hmm.
chided me and told me it was unprofessional to put my hands akimbo when I was speaking to a set of participants. And I reminded her that that was genetically a part of me. I
Mm-hmm.
choose to decide that I cannot help that and note my words because I know if I wanted to change it, I could, but I didn't.
Mm.
And so you have to be mindful to keep speaking up. The
Absolutely.
last thing I'll say is that I was raised, and going back to the culture in terms of I was raised by parents who were, like we would say, from the old school. So when Zara said, that told her story about not being seen and not heard, I was a little surprised because, I'm not going to talk ages here, but she's clearly younger than I am. And that still carries, into another generation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I was raised. So women speaking up and taking leadership roles, I'm, walking into spaces, and if you have a male counterpart as part of your team, all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden people go, "So you're working for that person?
Mm-hmm.
He's on your team, but because he's a man, you must be the second. You
Yeah.
cannot be the first." And the
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is when we as women leaders rise, then we tend to feel, some of us, we're learning how to bring our femininity and our feminine energy into spaces and wield that power.
Mm-hmm.
But so many of us feel, some of us, let me not qualify it, but some of us feel that we have to be masculine
Mm-hmm.
in order to command respect. And then women sometimes reject that from other women, not
Yes.
understanding the story of why she chooses to adopt that position in order to get respect. So those are some of the cultural issues and social issues that I see still raising their heads in my experience and our experience in the Caribbean and Barbados.
Mm. Powerful. Powerful. See, audience, this is why I have such amazing people on my panels. Gosh, the knowledge that is being dropped. Jeez. Okay. And Josephine, last but not least, before we head over to our break,
Yeah, so
what are some of
just
the cultural factors?
hmm. So I'm Nigerian. So just like Sarah and Coach have said, so of course gender expectations. So for the men, they're told not to speak up. They're told to be, you're a man. Don't show your emotions, and that's why research says that men, they're more susceptible to dying by suicide because they're not taught how to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then another cultural thing I see is different sects of these populations. For example, if you're a single parent or you have gone through a divorce, or so you're seen in a certain way. So that's why if you're going through abuse, you'll be told just stay there so that you not be a divorcee. Those kind of things. So they're engaging in self-destructive behavior because they don't want to be labeled. So
Mm,
they're enduring abuse. They're, taking things that they shouldn't take, whether it's the men or the women, both sides, because men too experience abuse in marriages. So culture of the society places these expectations on us, and then it's, could lead to self-destructive behaviors. I also see it in women. They're asking you, when are you going to marry? When are you going to
mm,
have kids? When are you going to have a job? So all of this expectation just puts a lot of pressure on us, and then we're not even
mm,
allowed to discover ourselves and discover who we really want. Do I want to have kids? Do I want to
yeah.
get married? Do I want to, do I even want to have a business? I just want to work
Hmm.
and not, have a business. So all of these expectations could put pressure on us, and then could make us do things we're not supposed to do, engage in self-destructive behaviors.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so true. Particularly the one about business. And I find that so interesting because we're at a
Yeah.
time right now where everyone's trying to find alternative means, alternative streams of income to combat the, the deficit of what is happening with this cost of living crisis globally. So,
Mhm.
people are either trying to start a second job or start a business. And again, that is in addition to the however many hours they're working in their current job anyway. So, that I could definitely see that happening in society, uh, in many, many different societies, to be fair. I won't even just say British society, but thank you for that, Josephine. Woo. Okay, so we're gonna have a quick break. Because yeah, we've delved into quite a lot, some heavy topics, but some really needed topics as well. So we're going to have a quick this and that game. Okay. So I briefly explained to our guests what this and that is. So those of you that have been part of the show previously will know what the this and that game is. If this is your first time joining, I will give a brief explanation. So you have a snap decision. I'm going to say two options and you pick what option more resonates with you in regards to whether you like it or whether you dislike, whatever it might be. So for example, I like apples. So if I say apples or oranges, I'd say orange apples, obviously, not oranges. If it's the sky or the ground, I say sky. Why do I like the sky? Because the sky is airy fairy and I'm an air sign, to be fair. But yeah, that's the kind of essence of the game. We're gonna throw out about 3 to 4 questions each, and those of you watching, feel free to give your answers in the chat. Let's begin. So I'm gonna start with Zara. Okay. Cuddling or sleeping?
Oh, sleeping,
Eating out or cooking at home?
cooking at home,
Oh, okay. Winter or summer?
summer.
Okay. And one last one. Passive or aggressive?
Oh, now let's go aggressive.
Okay. Why aggressive?
Because I think aggression is seen as a negative thing, but actually my passivity hurt me. And so now being
Mm,
aggressive, being bold, being confident, saying what I really mean and feel is
mm.
empowering.
Woo. Okay. We like that. We like that. We like that. Compassionate aggression. Okay, wonderful. So Josephine, you're up next. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Quick on the answers. Yep. This one's gonna be a difficult one, to be fair. Plants or flowers?
Flowers.
Flowers, did you say?
Yes, flowers.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. New Year's Eve or Valentine's Day?
New Year's Eve.
Okay, okay. Living in the past or living in the present?
Living in the present.
Okay. And last but not least, divorce or staying in a bad marriage?
Divorce.
Okay. Why would you choose divorce?
I think I already explained it in, one of my previous conversation. I deserve a second chance.
Mhm.
Yes, if it was my responsibility, I take it. But I deserve a second chance. If it's not working, it's not working. It doesn't mean I have to stay and just end my life. So I deserve a second chance.
Yes, indeed. I like that. I like that. Thank you very much. And Cheryl, are you ready?
Ready.
Ready,
I'm
ready,
ready.
ready.
Ready, ready, ready.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, fast or slow?
Thoughts.
Okay, introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
Work from home or commute to work?
Work from home.
Okay, last one. Painfully full or starving?
Painfully full.
And why painfully full?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know why. I'd rather not starve because that will impact the quality of my brain.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Very, very true.
Oh,
Very,
wow.
very true. Okay. I think we could do one more round actually. Yeah, we've got a bit of time for one more round. Zara, back on it. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Intelligence or humor?
Ooh, humor,
Okay. Freedom or hope?
freedom,
Family or friends?
family,
Sinful or righteous?
righteous.
And why righteous?
Ah. um, because the world is better with it. The world is
Mm,
better for it.
lovely.
We might feel better to kind of do what we want in our own way, but ultimately the world is a better place if we do right.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Josephine, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Working alone or working in a team?
Working in a team.
Mm. Family movies or adult movies?
Family movies.
Okay. Okay. Piercings or tattoos?
Eesh, so much pain. Piercings.
Why piercings?
uh, I don't think they're as painful. I don't know. I don't really like pain, so I don't think they're as painful. And then if I don't feel like tattoos are permanent, but for piercing, I think I can just remove them if I don't
Mm,
feel like having them anymore. Yeah.
true. And do you know what? I've got both, and I would have said piercings as well because it's quicker. Tattoos take longer, so you're in pain
Okay.
longer.
Longer.
Thank you for that. Cheryl, you're up. You're up. Are you ready? Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Reading books or watching videos?
Watching videos.
Okay. Um, where are we? Evil or good?
Good.
Of course, of course. Flip flops or sneakers?
Sneakers.
Horror films or mysteries?
Mysteries.
Why mysteries?
Because again, I think horror films are destructive to my spirit
Yeah, I'm not a horror
and my
film person
sleep.
myself.
And my sleep. And I love to be able to sleep through the night.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Okay, that's the end of our this and that game. Thank you all for participating. And the point of that is basically because when we are engaging in self-destructive behaviors, it often can be a snap decision that we make. And when it comes to the choices that we make, we don't always have the time to think them through, And when it comes to recognizing these self-destructive behaviors and being able to break them, it is all about those choices that we make. And it might even be in that moment that you make a snap decision to say, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something alternative that's going to better me rather than destroy me. So that's why I like to do these this and that games, because we have to think fast, but also it's a bit of fun in between. So just want to draw your attention, everyone, to some information. So if you are interested in being a guest in one of our upcoming shows, in the link in the chat, sorry, there's links for how you can become a guest. If you want to learn more about the Self Project, you can follow this link. If you want to watch a previous episode, as I mentioned earlier, we have done the power of self development and the power of self awareness. You can watch those episodes here, as well as the replay of the power of self destruction, what you're watching now. And we also have opportunities. If you'd like to sponsor our shows, feel free to reach out via email. And if you are able and willing to, feel free to give us a donation, because these shows are self-funded. Everything that we do here has been yeah, developed by myself. So feel free if you are able and willing to provide a donation. So, how do you feel after our break? Are we ready to jump back into questions for the last half an hour? Yep.
Ready?
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Good, good, good. We like a bit of a break, don't we? Okay, wonderful. So, let's jump back in. Question number 5. We've got about 3 or 4 questions to go. So, question number 5: have you ever sought professional help or therapy for self destructive behaviors? And if so, what was your experience? Now, before I hand over to whoever's going to answer this first, I will put my hands up and say, yes, I have. And I currently am engaging in therapy because sometimes you need a bit more help than what you currently have in your toolbox. And that is okay. And I believe us as Black people don't often talk about the difficulties that we may have, but also the types of support that we are engaging in. So I know this might be a bit of a personal question. Feel free to answer it as best as you wish. But I will hand this over to, first of all, Cheryl. Yeah, I'll hand it over to Cheryl. So, have you ever sought professional help or therapy for your self-destructive behaviors? If so, what was it like? If not, what was your alternative?
Yeah, I really can't say that I sought
Mm-hmm.
therapy for destructive behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but I have always had a coach, and as a
Mm-hmm.
counselor, I've always had counselors.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of, developing and revealing self to self, then I butt up on the self-destructive attitudes and beliefs and feelings and thoughts that I harbor. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was more or less as a part of the process of being holding myself to account and also helping myself reveal self to self so that I could be, when I say a better human being, it's only because I can't think of another word right now, but
Mm-hmm.
so I can be a more fulfilled
Yeah.
human being. I'm butting up on some of these things. So I mentioned pain earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I was reading a book by Gabor Mate,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about, similar to, I can't remember his name right now, who talks about the pain body. His name isn't coming to me, the Oprah guy. And but Gabor Mate has a book called When the Body Knows, and he talks about the psychology and emotional profiles
Mm-hmm.
of a lot of chronic illnesses. And when I think about some of the pain I was holding,
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that there were some unhealed wounds that I was carrying that
Mm-hmm.
were, in fact, destructive to self. That being in coaching and in therapy with my mentors and my coaches and my counselors, I was able to begin to look at them and go through the process to try to reveal some of the unconscious
Yes.
healings, because what I learned is that the body finds it easier to deal with physical pain than
Mm-hmm.
it does to deal with the emotional pain.
Yeah.
And so you then manifest physical pain because you could go get a tablet for that.
Mm-hmm.
But to deal with the emotional pain, oh my gosh, that's just too much crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in those spaces where I was just pelting out those tears, just recognizing, and it linked back to me losing my voice, not speaking up, not, bringing my whole self into the space and taking up space. And so it led me to create something called Fearless Woman, because I recognized that as far as I had come, I was still living in fear. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of those self destructive behaviors are actually expressions of fear.
Mm.
And so I've had to face that and face them bit by bit through coaching, especially.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, coaching definitely I see as a way of, being able to unpack the different aspects of your life to be able to, become a better version of yourself. And whilst it isn't professional therapy per se, it does have a lot of therapeutic elements in it. So definitely, I appreciate your offering there. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Josephine, what about yourself?
Yeah, at first, I would call it on professional help. My mom in secondary school, like I mentioned, she was there for
Mm-hmm.
me. She wasn't a typical Nigerian or African mom that, what's wrong with you? Why? she would, because I had physical illnesses, just like Coach Cheryl just explained. So I had physical illnesses because of my mind struggle. So she was always there for me, and that was amazing, speaking to me and just counseling me then. So yeah,
Mm,
so growing up and also seeing the importance of therapy, or counseling, let me say counseling, I've also engaged in it. And
mm,
one of the things I've done is I've been able to develop a support system for myself that is able to
mm,
put me in check. So even
mm,
if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, my husband is like, okay, so you're not resting. You're having dark circles under your eye. Okay, so now it's time to close your laptop and all of those things. So that's
mm.
also what I've done.
Yeah, it's so important to have a support network to, like you said, keep you in check. Accountability is key. So thank you very much for that, Josephine. And Zara, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I spoke earlier about how therapy was transformative for me
Mm-hmm.
because I've always been the youth leader in church, the teacher and pastoral leader, and really I've always seen other people and been that friend that supports others, but never really
Mm,
invested in myself. So I've had more than one business mentor. I've had a therapist or a therapeutic counselor. I have now a chiropractor.
mm-hmm.
Um, who just cracks me up and talks to me about my posture, and then I engaged in therapeutic practices. I now have a
Mm,
personal trainer twice a week. I do a 6-minute journal, which really,
mm,
as Cheryl said earlier, puts me in a state of gratitude daily. Because in the
mm,
morning and in the evening, for 3 minutes each, I get to say what I'm grateful for, what wonderful things happened, and
mm-hmm.
how I want to make tomorrow even better. So, yeah, all of the above has been transformative for me and really as a lifestyle. So,
Mm,
not as a kind of, I used to be very reactive. So, when I am already on the way to being very sick, then I want to search for my vitamin D
yeah,
tablets. Then I need to get cover. But
yeah.
actually, now making it a lifestyle and a practice has just meant that I'm avoiding crisis, and
Mm,
I'm taking steps to just be generally healthy.
yeah.
Mind, body, soul, generally healthy, and and that's been really, really transformative.
Amazing. Thank you. And do you know what? I think a lot of the time we can underestimate the natural doctors. So, Cheryl, I know earlier you mentioned about going to the beach, and I see that as a natural doctor, the sun, the sea, the breeze, all of these things that we take for granted. Honestly, we take for granted. Even, we live in Britain. I live in Britain. Zara lives in Britain. We don't get that much sun, but even just going outside and hearing the birds singing and looking at nature is some of the ways that you can help alleviate some of these stresses that lead you into these destructive behaviors. So thank you very much. And something I really want to get into, because I know we've spoken a lot about self and self-destructive, and I understand that that's the title of the show, but a lot of the time I see people that engage in self-destructive behaviors try to press that self-destructive button around others and they suck others into their self-destruction. And I would like us to speak a bit about the impact that self-destructive behaviors have on your relationships around you. So I'm going to ask, first of all, Josephine, how does self-destructive behaviors in oneself impact those around you?
First is the disconnection. So you're disconnected from family, you're disconnected from friends, you're disconnected from work. You just feel out of place. Okay, so if it's physical self-destruction, you're self-harming, you're cutting yourself. So of course you don't want people to know you're ashamed. So you
Mm,
isolate yourself. You just like wearing like a cape of I don't I'm carrying on my problems by myself and I don't want anybody to see so that they don't judge me. So of course you
mm,
isolate yourself, you're disconnected, and of course you can't get help.
mm,
You won't be
mm,
able to speak up if you're disconnected. So you're disconnected, there's a lot of instability. So is it emotional instability? You don't know how to regulate your emotions, or physical instability? You're not eating properly, you're not doing all those amazing things that I described that is a lifestyle, not
mm,
necessarily reactive. So you're just really unstable. Today you're happy, tomorrow you're sad, you're irritable, and all of that could really be stressful to the body. So
mm,
yeah, so self-destruction just takes us out, of the environment, and we're just like we're the only one on the island, which is very, very destructive.
Yeah, that's true. That's so, so true. Thank you so much, Josephine. Yeah, that the lone island. That's the bit that stuck with me just then. The lone island, because yeah, if you do have true friends and true family that will tell you, as you mentioned before, about keeping you in check, then they're not going to enable those behaviors, you know? So I guess withdrawing themselves to protect themselves, but also as a means of not allowing you to destroy their lives as well. So, yeah, I appreciate that. The lone islands, that's going to stick with me. Thank you very much. Cheryl, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think self-destructive behaviors within me can impact my relationships if I choose. I have to take up the same isolation. Yesterday, I was doing some work with a group, and it included a pastor, and we were talking about the intention wasn't to speak about self-destructive behaviors, but they came up,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things was around the fact that people are in pain. And oftentimes they don't want to say that they're in pain. They don't want to ask for help, but yet still they want to be seen. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that because in with respect to the pastor, I was saying to him that it is important for you to reach out ever so occasionally and just ask people without intruding, how are you doing? Just checking in with you. I saw such and such and such. How are you doing? Nothing more,
Mm-hmm.
and let them speak. They may or may not want to speak, but at least they have been seen, and it may open the door for them to share. One of the ways that this self-destructive behaviors have impacted my own relationships is really truly I have to limit it to isolation because I too believe that I can handle stuff on my own. I could
Mm-hmm.
handle it. I got this. I don't want to bother anybody. I
Yeah.
also don't want to share limiting news or bad experiences with another person, especially people that I love and care for, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say something that would ruin their day because they love me so much that it would also pain them.
Mm-hmm.
So, what the other part of that self destruction is me thinking for the other person. I learned in a session recently with my coach that where when I was talking about unconditional love and I was telling him about, the opportunity I got to, love unconditionally when my parents weren't well and they're as they were leaving, transitioning out of this plane. And I was that led into another conversation about how I'm withholding the opportunity from people who love me to support me when I'm going through pain. And
Mm-hmm.
he said to me that, hey, you are placing conditions on how people love you. That is not unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I never thought of it from that perspective. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that unconditional love is the experience of me giving unconditional love. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that me putting limits on the way people give love to me was also an act of unconditional love.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is
Mm-hmm.
very self-destructive because not I'm not allowing them to help me in the way they do because I'm thinking about, oh, I don't want them spending that money on me. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't want them spending all that time with me. Oh, I don't want to upset their day. Wow. So that was a
Yeah.
big thing for me in terms of how my self-destructive thoughts and beliefs unknowingly
Mm.
was impacting my relationships. And they were kind enough not to say anything.
Mm. That's so powerful. That is so, so powerful because, we speak a lot about love languages and how we interact with others in the way that we interact with them. But, you know, our self-love language is often different to the way that we express love, but how we also receive love in those instances as well is also a part of the makeup of potentially fulfillment or destruction. So I appreciate that very much, Cheryl. That's another gem. I hope you're learning as much as I am, everyone. And last but not least, Zara, what about yourself?
Yeah, when I saw this question, I really thought about my husband, who's known me, as Rihanna knows, since I was born. So
Yeah.
our families have grown up together. There's a photo of my mother-in-law holding me as a newborn. And so we've literally done life together.
Mm,
And he's really walked with me as a friend, and then as a life partner. And it was only in recent years that I kind of looked up from my own stuff to
mm,
realize the impact that walking with me had on him.
mm,
And my own, we all bring baggage, don't we? We all bring our luggage to the relationships that we have. And the luggage that I had brought, he'd helped me put it in the
carry
car
it.
and
Yeah.
carry it over to the threshold of our relationship as a couple. And so in more recent years, I've been more aware of that.
Mm,
And the way I have kind of mitigated that is to, to ensure that I am not disconnecting from him.
mm,
So, like you said, Josephine and Cheryl, about the isolation, that yes, I'm going through this and it's very much my experience, but it has an impact, it has a ripple effect.
mm,
And so I've really made a conscious effort to keep communicating and continue um, to allow him in to that
mm,
kind of intimate space where perhaps I wasn't allowing others in. And that's what's helped us, almost 16 years married and 20 years together and forever knowing each other, that although we're evolving and I'm developing and I'm changing and I'm growing, because I keep communicating, we're able to stay in this together.
yeah. Amazing. And I love that for you guys. Yes. And you know what? As you've mentioned that, it leads me so nicely into the next question because it can sometimes be difficult to know how to support someone that is pressing the self-destructive button.
Mm,
And I think it's really important for us to share with our audience from a self perspective, not from a self-righteous perspective, but just from a
mm,
self perspective, how we can support our loved ones if we are noticing the self-destructive tendencies play out. And yeah, just a few hints and tips as we are coming to a close of this show. So I will throw this question first of all to Josephine.
I'll say the first thing, please don't judge. Okay,
Mm,
please don't play the righteous one. Be very calm, especially if you see, like it's physical. If it's physical, or you notice the person is emotionally self-destructive, please don't judge. Ask how you can help.
mm,
Okay, or how may I help? Or do you need me to come over? Can we watch a movie together? Just something relaxing. The person may not even know how you could help, but do you need me around? Do you need me to help with laundry or just help you do something, groceries? That could really be helpful. And
mm,
then you could encourage the person to seek professional help. Okay,
mm,
so is it that you're giving the person the contact of a very good therapist or counselor, or you could even pay for the first session. Just go in there and speak to this person. Just go and throw, your weight on this person. That could also be very helpful. Please don't judge. Don't say, "Oh, I've been through this. Why can't you just get up and get moving?" That's very very harmful.
yeah.
It could even be worse. Yeah. So
Yeah. Thank you very much. And Zara, what would you say?
Yeah, I agree with Josephine. I think it's so easy because you love the person to want to fix them.
Mm,
And you can't fix them. Even if you yourself are a therapist, you can't try and fix them or make it better. But what you can do is love them and be gentle with them and recognize that it is a journey.
mm,
Who I am 5 years ago is, it's like I look different. When I look at photos of myself then and I look at myself now, it's physically a transformation, let alone what has happened internally. So I
Mm,
would really say appreciate that they're on their journey and be
mm,
present and be loving and yeah, certainly non-judgmental. And as they're on this journey, there will be opportunities, as Josephine said, for you to signpost them
mm,
to
mm,
different things, or would you like to go for a walk, or I'm going to this session, or you'll see the signpost, and when they reject it, if they reject it because they're not ready, that's okay,
mm,
because they know without you even saying it, you're there for them, you love them, and you're on the journey with them.
mm. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Cheryl, what would you say?
I 100%, forgive me.
It's all right. We've been speaking a lot. Have you got your water with you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, take a quick sip. It's
Wonderful.
okay.
I concur with everything that was said by Josephine and Zara.
Mm,
I start off by saying, don't be too quick to put on your cap. And
mm,
by that, I mean the cap we wear as therapists and as coaches. Um, and we go in trying to rescue,
mm,
as Zara said, to fix everything. Because it is true that for me, I want to give you my life. And
mm,
by that, I mean, and when I give you my time, I'm giving you my life. So give them your life. Be in the space with them. In Barbados, I would say, let's go for a drive to the beach. Let's
mm-hmm.
go for a drive into the country so that we could be in nature. But to have them know that this too shall pass. And
Yeah.
not in a, what do you call, cliche way,
Mm,
but have them recognize. My brother always says something to me that I absolutely love. Life is for a time, so everything within it must be for a time. And
mm,
why I say to give them your life is because you can't get back the time you give someone because you've given them their life. And they recognize, because that is filled with so much love. When
mm,
you sacrifice your time and you're sacrificing your life, they feel that.
mm,
And I've had these situations where I hastily put on my cap. I wanted to fix, and I had to pedal back, breathe, and say, this is not what is needed now. They need
mm,
a friend. They need a friend. And so I had to be mindful to switch into friendship mode,
yeah.
because they didn't hire me to be their coach or the counselor. They reached out to me because they were reaching out to a friend. So I need to be able to respond that way and give them time,
Yeah.
there regardless of where they are. Just be there.
Mm,
You don't have to do anything. You said earlier, you're a human being. Don't
yep.
be a human saying. Don't be a human doing. You know,
Or human thinking.
our human thinking. Allow them space and let them take
Mm,
it up.
yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. And I guess I'll throw in my few pieces of advice because everything here has been absolutely amazing. But I'll also say reframe the way that you think about the situation, because a lot of the time we can be like, oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why can't you just, much like what you said, Zara? But rather than thinking what's wrong with you, think about it of what's happened to you, because that helps you draw out the empathy and the compassion that we all need, and can share with others. Something else I'd also say is look at different ways of creating different decision making strategies. you know, like what I said before about the this and that game, we can often make snap decisions, but is this the decision that needs a quick judgment decision, or is this a decision that needs to be thought out? Think about the different ways that you think about your decision making processes as well. And I'd also say practice moderation, because when it comes to self-destructive behaviors, they may not always look how we said they look. So before we mentioned about workplace and success and all these kind of things, and sometimes stress can be good, but in moderation. Otherwise it will then become something that is spiraling and can lead to an array of different self-destructive behaviors. And last but not least, I would say write down why you want to change. Why is this so important to you? Why do you feel that you are actually engaging in these self destructive behaviors? And again, engage in all these other practices of seeking help, having community, having accountability, and be able to work through it that way as well. So those are my few bits of advice and encouragement there as well. So as we round up to the end of this show, which has been absolutely amazing, I just want to thank you all for being here, being present, sharing your wealth of knowledge. And we, at the end of each show, throw out our self suggestions. So if you would all please engage, take yourselves off of mute. Let me know your self word that you'd like us to explore or vote on for our next shows. And those that are watching, feel free to drop your suggestions in the comments. This is a time for you all to provide your suggestions as well. So you're not allowed to choose self-development, and you're not allowed to choose self-awareness, and you're not allowed to choose self-destruction, because we've covered them already. So anything that comes to mind, could be self-care, it could be self-love, it could be self-righteousness, it could be self whatever. But what would you like us to engage in the next show? Have a bit of a think. Go ahead. Yeah, call them out.
Okay. I would say self-discovery. I'm a big advocate for self-discovery because if you're talking about anything self-care,
Hmm.
self-development, you need to know who you are first. You need to
Yes.
know where you're going. Like, when Zara said her therapist asked her, "Who is Zara?" I
Mm.
always ask, in short, if you want to have if you're in therapy with me, that's the first assignment. And then they're always like, why? Because it's very important. Sometimes they're like, okay, just give them 2 weeks for their family, 2 weeks, and then they come back. So just self-discovery is an amazing
Yeah.
topic. It's a journey, and a lot of people think, oh, I've discovered myself, who I'm Josephine. No, it's a
Yeah.
journey that you need to continue discovery and so I think that topic should
Yes.
be explored.
Amazing. Right. I've got self-discovery. Wonderful. What next? What's
Oh, I
your
love that
suggestion?
one.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would have said self-worth.
Self-worth.
um, just what it means to be worthy of. I find, particularly for myself, I think, oh, am I worthy of this home? Am I
Mm,
worthy of this many bedrooms? Am I worthy of a bigger home? Am I worthy of this position? But I
mm.
do love self-discovery. I think that's got to come first, surely.
Well, we've got to let the audience vote. So yeah, these will be voted across our social media platforms. Cheryl, what about yourself? What is your self word you want to vote for?
I have to endorse self discovery. I know we're not voting, but because that's where connect with your passion was born.
Mm,
However, because it's so important, you ask a person, who are you? And I've had
mm,
those experiences where in my workshops, people would literally, tears would just flow because they're like, oh my gosh,
mm,
I'm now realizing that I am not who I'm not the I'm not choosing who I really am. It's being chosen for me. But the
mm.
2 words I thought about, I want to put out there, are self-judgment
Yep.
and
Self-judgment.
self-talk. And I kind of know that those are kind of
Ooh.
close. But the chatter, if we had girlfriends that chatted and kept talking to us as often as we talk to ourselves with all the
Mm,
negativity,
mm,
we would be like, shut up. Okay, I really can't stand her.
mm, mm.
So I love the idea of, dealing with self-talk and self-judgment.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, yes, yes. Thank you. So we have self-discovery, self-worth, self-judgment, and self-talk.
Mm.
Viewers, I don't see any suggestions. I'm going to throw out my suggestion, okay? My one is self-taught, okay? The reason why I say that is because there are so many amazing individuals. And again, if we're talking about breaking down the stigma of what a professional is, professionals are a lot of the time self-taught. They teach themselves a lot. And I've taught myself a lot, and it doesn't take away my, I guess, status as a professional. Yeah. So yeah, self-taught is my self word that I'm gonna throw in there because no one else has thrown any suggestions. So
Wow.
the
May I say something?
yeah, go ahead. Feel free.
I love that you said that because in terms of honoring your experiences, like I'm
Mm,
sure all of us have, certifications behind our names.
mm-hmm,
And I like to say that what I bring to the space is not only my certifications because I care so much about my clients and
mm-hmm.
charges that I want them to know that I went and I studied this because I
Exactly.
care enough not to come up and be talking crap,
Yeah.
but also I've also through my personal experiences,
Mm.
those were learnings that
Yeah.
helped me to create programs and
Mm-hmm.
helped me to be able to coach better and bringing those into the space. Not to be saying, not to be doing autobiographing,
Mm.
making up a word, but to be able to say, these are the experiences I'm having, and how can that knowledge and those experiences be brought into the space with courage,
Mm.
compassion, and clarity. So I'm
Absolutely.
really happy you said that.
Absolutely. Because, a lot of the time we can create things that we think are nice, but it's one of the things where I'm a person, you got to walk the walk. I'm not going to believe you if you've not come from a place of authenticity, of self knowing, because you've gone through something yourself, or you've directly supported and influenced someone um, by way of being able to support and self teach that way. So, yeah, self taught is one.
Yeah.
And I've done many, many things that are self taught, like hair and all those different things. But yeah, self taught. So, as we've come to the end of the show, please tell me and our audience what you're working on, where they can find you, your upcoming projects. So, Cheryl, we'll start with you first, please.
Oh, yes. I alluded to it earlier. I think if you can look into my background, you would see that I have featured my book. It is called Wow, Words
Hmm.
of the Week, to begin changing the habit of being yourself. I'm passionate
Mm,
about this habit that we call self. You know,
mm-hmm,
the combination of our thoughts, feelings, and actions that we repeat over and over again that turn into patterns of our being that we
mm,
embody, and so that we reflectively show up as that. And
mm,
then recognizing, and to help people recognize that they are creative beings, and the extent to which they become conscious into the space, then they are able to find a way through to change who they are, because they created themselves into that space, and therefore you can uncreate or recreate something else. So that's really a piece that I want to share. That works in the context of another project that I'm working on, and we are doing over the next few months. And this is Fearless Woman Global Academy. We're going
mm-hmm,
to be doing our intensive coming up in May, sorry,
mm-hmm,
June. And then
mm-hmm,
we're starting our conversation series where we're having women who are known in society um, go through a space where they come and share their fears and their vulnerability. One of the things I think is when we are in fear, we're at the point of power where
mm,
our highest level of vulnerability exists. But being in that space of vulnerability allows you the way through. So having these women that are known in society come and share their fears and how they manifest themselves and how they've healed through that fear through vulnerability and sharing is a powerful process and program that we're in right now. So,
amazing.
Fearless Women Global Academy.
So, where can people find you and find out more about the Fearless Woman Academy?
They can find out more about Fearless Women Academy when I start posting
Okay.
about it. So, because I usually put it up when I'm actually doing a workshop and bring that
Yep.
to the space. So they'll see that on my Instagram account, which is
Yep.
at Cheryl Nayara. And
Yep.
they'll also see it at Your Essence on
Mm,
Facebook when I
yeah.
start to post it. And I have something there up for our Fearless Woman conversations already. And then
Wonderful.
there's my website, which doesn't speak to Fearless Woman, but it speaks to, I'm going to build out that page soon, but it
Hmm.
speaks to creating your future, which is an interesting process that revealed itself out of connect with your passion. And I take
Amazing.
people through, 5 steps to get them there, beginning with, get clarity, get decisive, get
Yep.
direction, and get committed, which is the habits part, and
Yep.
then get become, and then the get. Sorry, and the last part is really get extraordinary, so you can step into your greatness.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much,
You're
Cheryl.
welcome.
Those of you listening, engage with Cheryl and connect with your passion and connect with everything that you need to connect with to become your highest and best self. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Josephine, where can people find you? What have you got coming up?
So on Facebook, I was someone can Josephine money. The same thing with Instagram. No, so Instagram is Osoke underscore Josephine, and LinkedIn is Josephine money. So the encourager in brackets. What do I do? So every month I host an encouragement series on LinkedIn and an IG live every month. So basically, I'm talking about mental health and how we can with different populations. So for the month of April, I'm talking about the mental health of a first time dad. Okay, so
Amazing.
how what happens, how do you go through it with your wife, your spouse, and all of those things. So yeah, those are my
Amazing.
projects for now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And Zara, what have you got coming up and where can people find you?
Yes, so I am an educator, a teacher. I'm really passionate about academic progress and young people achieving. So you can find me on Love Literacy Ltd. You can find me at Zara Muirhead, and our website is love-literacy.com or love-literacy.com. Two things. One thing is we're doing kind of quarterly Q&As for parents. Our motto is really empowering through education, where no one is left behind. So if you wanted to drop us your email and join our mailing list so that you can be informed about our Q&As. The last one we had was with an awesome author called Dr. Deron Wallace, who has written a book about Caribbeans in New York and also in London, and the disparities and perceptions of Caribbeans in the education world. So it was very, very empowering. And then we run a CIC called Love Education, which really is to create a safe space for young people where they can develop a growth mindset, where they can have exposure to a range of disciplines and career paths, and where they can build their skills and their confidence so they can go out into the world and be brilliant and be who they were created to be. So the best thing is to find me on Instagram or LinkedIn, Love Literacy Ltd, Zara Muirhead, and then it's love-literacy.com.
Amazing, amazing. And just to say, congratulations on your latest award, by the way. I saw that come up
Thank
on
you.
Instagram. So well done to you. We love to see the achievements.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, so we've run over slightly, but it's okay. We move because we've got a wealth of knowledge. So thank you everyone for joining in, for taking part. Just a quick reminder, you can watch previous episodes of the S.E.L.F Project here. You can learn more about the S.E.L.F Project, go into the website. If you'd like to become a guest, feel free to use this form, sign up, and I'll get in touch. If you want to be a sponsor, reach out to me via email and, dig deep if you can and support us financially. We'd appreciate it. So, we have now come to the end of our show. We appreciate you. We love you. Share with a friend all the amazing knowledge of gems that have been dropped today. But most importantly, it's Sunday. So look after yourselves. It's Self Care Sunday. Have a blessed and most beautiful day. Take care. Bye bye.